Good morning. My backyard is one of my happy places right now, so I thought I would be uh, in good company out here with the birds to share a devotional with you this morning. Today's Monday, and that means that it's the Monday of Holy Week. Yesterday was Palm Sunday, the day when Jesus enters Jerusalem triumphantly. The palm branches are laid down. But then what a lot of folks forget is that he kind of turns around and leaves after it's over. He goes back to Bethany for the night and then comes back to the city the next day. And he has a lot of time to think about what he's going to do when he gets back. And he's got a plan. So he goes right back to the temple. And when he gets to the temple, he sees what he saw the day before. And he'd had time to think about all night. That was the corruption that was going on in the temple. The corruption in the temple started out probably from a good place, like most things do. They wanted to protect the holiness of the temple and make sure only the right kind of animals were offered. And so they set up shop, selling animals to people. But then people start taking advantage of that system and making a little extra money. The lambs at the temple cost more than they do somewhere else. The money changers were trying to protect the holiness of the temple, and they wouldn't accept the Roman shekel with some pagan god or some foreign ruler on it. You had to have the shekel of the Jewish people that they used. But then the exchange rate suddenly becomes more favorable to the peddlers and changers at the temple, right? So it started out probably with a good place and ended up something rotten and lousy. And so Jesus comes in and is sickened by the whole thing, and instead he decides to cleanse the temple, is the way it's described. He overturns the tables, he chases out the cattle, drives them out. The whip seems to be more about driving the cattle than it is about beating anybody up, so don't use this as a passage about violence or anything. But this is a passage about cleansing something that had gone wrong, in particular something that had gone wrong in the heart of religion and of religious people. And for that day, for that moment, it all comes to a halt. That's an interesting metaphor or a comparison to where we're at, where not through anybody's intention, our normal processes of religion and life and everything we do is just ground to a halt. Everything's stopped because of quarantine and all this jazz. And it's an opportunity then to think about what's important. When there's no money changers and there's no cattle in the temple, when all the things that we put in place to kind of make it work stop, what actually is important, what actually matters. And it's a great opportunity to think about that. What are the things we're missing right now? What are the things we're not missing? What can we cleanse out of the temple of our religion, and what can we keep? It's a great time for transformation and reform and repentance, and for new life to come into the temples of our religion and to really take off. And while it's scary to endure that, there's a quiet moment when everything stops and you say, what now? Something better could come out of it. There was another temple. Jesus says, this temple has ground to a halt, but destroy this temple, his body, and I'll build it back in 3 days. And that couldn't be stopped, right? The Romans could march in and destroy the temple, and religion as you knew it came to a halt, but they couldn't take Jesus away. 3 days he'd be back. And it's the same thing for our religion, that we look around and a lot of things we find normal have ground to a halt, but the things that actually matter haven't and can't. And that's beautiful.